welcome to the Women in Fishing Podcast. I'm Chris Woodward. The Women in Fishing Podcast is sponsored by Axo Noble Yacht Coatings, makers of Interlux and Albrecht products for boats. Today, I want to talk to y'all about encouraging and supporting minority women anglers. My guests are Angelica Talan. Angelica is a Washington, D.C.-based digital creator, blogger, and social media influencer. She is also a fly angler and the current community outreach liaison for United Women on the Fly. Jeanine Blair lives in Texas City, Texas, and runs the women's fishing group Fishanistas, which has a robust following on social media. Fishanistas seeks to empower women of all races and backgrounds to find their inner fishing passion. Welcome, Angelica and Jeanine. How are y'all?
Good. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you so much for having us.
Great. Listen, I just want to find out a little bit about y'all before we kind of jump into a few questions and such. Angelica, why don't you start and tell me a little bit about your fishing experience and what species you like to target and where? What are your fishing passions?
Oh, wow. So many really great questions. Well, I began my journey a few years ago, and I am constantly adding fish to the species that I like to target. But so far, I think I've fallen in love with trout, of course. I like to fish for panfish or kind of exotic fish that you can fly fish for. Any fish that you can catch on the fly, that's what I'm all about.
Okay, do you have a specific species of trout that you target? And I assume you're speaking freshwater trout.
Yes, freshwater trout, and I love the Lahontan cutthroat trout. That's been my favorite. I also really love the way that rainbow trout fight, but there's something about brook trout too that just warms my heart whenever I'm able to catch like a small brookie. So I don't discriminate. I mean, even my first time catching a brown trout was like, with every experience and every species, it just seems to be a little bit more magical every single time. I don't really have a favorite. It's like fishing and catching is like having children to me. It really is. I get this magical feeling every single time.
That's great. All right, Jeanine, I know you have a lot of passion and you are promoting passion. So tell us what you're passionate about.
Got to be the Reds here in Texas. Oh my goodness. I'm from the Midwest. However, my move to Texas has brought a whole different passion of fishing into my life, and saltwater and fishing for the Reds, speckled trout. Those are my fish. Those are the fish to catch.
I'm with you there. I am more primarily an inshore fisherman than I am offshore or at this point, freshwater, because I live on the coast and, I have a kayak. And so I'm able to get out and get in some of the backcountry, and it's so peaceful there. So I get that totally. I wanted to talk about what do y'all see happening in the fishing world today when it comes to women in fishing, and particularly minority women in fishing? Angelica, you want to tackle that?
Well, what I've discovered is, as a mom, most of the moms are getting women, or I would say most kids are starting to learn at a younger rate because of moms like me who want to go and kind of introduce the sport of fishing to their children. I learned how to fish from my uncle. And I remember my mom and my aunt wanting so badly to teach all the kids, but he was there to teach us all. What I'm finding today in 2023 is that moms are empowered enough to just say, no, like, you stay at home. I've got this. And they take their kids out. And, they take their nieces and nephews now. So what I'm learning is that the majority of women that are moms are fast to introduce this beautiful sport to their children and to their children's friends and to their nieces and nephews. In terms of being a woman of color, I still see that we probably are a little behind other sports and getting the attention of women of color. I think part of that has to do with the way that brands are marketing to anglers. And I think there's a huge need that we need to shift the way that we're being marketed to as women of color, because a lot of times people say, "You like this?" And I say, "Yeah." And they were like, "We never even thought about it. Like, how'd you, get even the idea to do it?" And I think part of it is you have to see it. And if you see it, you can be it.
Yeah, it's interesting. The RBFF has done a lot of research on that, Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation. And I was just in a webinar where they were discussing that exact issue. And I really had not thought about that before. If you only see men fishing on television or in magazines or just in advertisements for fishing rods and such, you just don't even think that's something that you'd want to do. And it didn't dawn on me either, because I was in the industry and I just thought, well, kind of how it is. Jeanine, what do you think? What are your thoughts on what's going on in the fishing world today with women and women of color?
Women are doing it. Women are really rising above and riding these waves with the men. We have a lot of women in Fishanistas that compete professionally and with the men. And I am just like, y'all go, girl. I don't think I have the kind of skills that it would take to be able to tournament fish. But so many women are rising to that top level tier, and I see it going well. However, we're going to have to break it down in a couple of ways. We're all minority women, but then there's Black women, and then there's women of color. And I hate to even spur it, but it is part of our truth. I've noticed that in the fishing industry that women who are maybe an Indian descent, Alaskan, anyone that is very, very fair, they are the ones that are chosen to represent minorities. If you notice, you really don't see a lot of women that look like me, that are dark complected. People are saying, all these companies, we're doing the work. You're not doing the work. You're messing them up. You're not talking to the right people. Yes, we're women of color, but we're Black women, and Black women were the original women of color. So now when you say women of color, you're including Asian, Indian, everyone who has a different skin tone other than a white woman. You're a woman of color. Once again, that brings the Black woman lowest on the totem pole. Support is just not there for us. We don't get the TV shows. We don't get the different things other white women would be able to get. I do see it moving at a snail's pace, that people are really trying. And I think that there's an honest effort in getting more African-American women out to fish. It's just sometimes I think they get it a little wrong, and it goes in the totally opposite direction, and it doesn't help the women that really need the help to get out there and fish. Just like Angelica was saying, I told somebody that I would fly fishing, and they were like, "What? You fly fishing? Really? I didn't know Black people did that." We do that. So it's moving in the right direction. It's just at a slower pace than I would like to see.
What do you think would maybe speed that up? What would you suggest? And maybe it's an industry pointing specifically at different parts of the industry. Maybe it's pointing at specific entities. What do you think?
That's a difficult question, because I'm not those companies, and the only thing that I do for my group is ask for support, and it is very hard getting support. Everybody jumps on the DEI bandwagon and wants to do the work and wants to say we're a part of this great big picture, and it's not hitting the neighborhoods. It's not hitting like the neighborhoods in DC or Philadelphia, where it's really, really needed, where these kids need to get off the phones and the video games and get outside. And it starts, if you can get the kid, you can get the mom. But most African-American moms are usually single parents. It's hard for them finding the time, from work. So it's a lot of, it's so many different factors. That's a show for a whole other time, but it's just the truth. But it's too many areas that would have to be touched to really get things moving in the right direction and at a faster pace.
Angelica, any thoughts on that?
Well, my reality is a little different than Jeanine, because Jeanine owns, I think, a company that kind of caters to women and needs support to back up the program. For myself, as a liaison on United Women on the Fly, I've been able to connect with brands that want to really help women of color and in the way of marketing, advertising, helping financially support others through scholarships, education, et cetera, et cetera. What I am seeing that is kind of the biggest hurdle in terms of my own experience is that we aren't being advertised to enough. So to hop on what Jeanine is saying, in some of the major cities that have a predominant Black or brown or minority population, and that to me also includes, the LGBTQIA community. Historically, the fishing industry doesn't need that support because they are able to hop on kind of the dominant culture who's traditionally had a lot of the money. But I think finally in 2023, they're realizing that we actually have some money too. And we like to use our buying dollar towards brands that really look to us and want to support us the way that Jeanine was saying, but also want to feature us in their ads. And I believe, again, it all comes back to if she or he can see it, they can be it. So my biggest idea is to try to do what you're doing for us today, Chris, and that's by inviting us on a show, on a podcast, so that others can see that we are here, we're out there, we're trying to spread our passion and our joy and our love for this beautiful sport, and hire us to come out and host an event with your brand. Hire us to talk to you a little bit more about, our love for your particular rod and reel. Hire us to host an event on the water. If we can see spokespeople the same way that we would see any NFL player or any NBA player, hawking their shoes or their jerseys for fly fishing in particular for me, then I think we could really cross some barriers in such a beautiful and passionate way that would really make a significant and positive impact on the sport.
Well, that's quite a good summary right there. The one thing that I have noticed in the realm of women in fishing is that there are so many wonderful efforts, so many people that are reaching out in various ways, and we have lacked a way to communicate and kind of network and keep everything together. We're starting to do that. We're starting to do that on a regional level now more than anything. A little bit on a national level with some agencies getting together at events like ICAST, the Fishing Tackle Trade Show. But there's a women's meetup, for instance, in Charleston, and there was one in Florida. So there's starting to be a little bit more, we're starting to get to know each other a little bit better. We're starting to know who each other is. So I can see that, like you said, Jeanine, it's sort of going at a slow pace. And some of that is just due to not having a real definitive structure at this point that speaks to just the issues of women, whether they be women of color or not. But, maybe that's something that we're developing, maybe, as we start to get together a little bit more. Maybe we form some type of entity. And there are different committees within that say, we want to talk to moms. We want to talk to moms out there helping their kids. Here's the person who's the point person for that. We want to talk to women of color. Here's the point person for that, et cetera. And just have something that's organized. You can contact this network and say, I need somebody for my fishing rod ad, Okuma or Penn or Shimano or whoever, so that they know where to go.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that actually I've thought a lot about is communicating with the industry about getting women's test panels together. In other words, women who are willing to test a new reel or a new rod and reel and tell you what they think about it. That type of thing where, we could start to have some input, in terms of what we like, what we want to use and what we'd like. And there's a lot that needs to still be done, but I'm grateful that it's heading in the right direction. At least I think it is. Other than what we were just talking about, are there other major stumbling blocks that you see or barriers for a minority women or women of color just trying to find out about fishing?
I think that things are pretty accessible, and especially with state-driven programs like Texas Parks and Wildlife, they do an amazing job with different programs during the summer, all year round, getting minorities out to fish. I mean, they have really. I am proud of Texas. I am very, very proud of Texas and the work that they're doing. They're bringing other groups together to fish together, making sure that there's grant monies out there for different organizations that are providing lessons for kids or equipment for kids. So Texas, I gotta give them a thumbs up. I'm not sure about any other state, but Texas is doing it.
It's great. Is there a specific program name that Texas Parks and Wildlife is doing? Is it called something?
No, but Texas Parks and Wildlife, they have the 3 R's. Something and retention. What they focus on,
or something like that.
Yeah. So you've heard it. It's wonderful.
Well, Angelica, do you what other kinds of barriers are you seeing?
Again, I think the largest barrier for me is just maybe not seeing myself represented in the fishing world. I went to ICAST this past year, and it was amazing. I still didn't see myself represented in any of the models that they had at the showroom, in any of the magazines or ads that they had featured, on any of the boxes for any of the tools that we would use. But I think, it takes some people like myself and Jeanine to knock down some doors and say, like, hey, knock, knock, we're here, and we're willing to connect and collaborate and partner with you. I'm not going to put all the onus on people that are in the advertising industry for this particular genre of sport. But I think it's a kind of a two-way street where, maybe we as women of color are kind of in the back minds, or not even on anyone's mind when it comes to advertising and marketing merchant. But, again, I want to thank you, Chris, because you put us on a podcast about fishing, and it really gets us out there to be able to discuss our passion for fishing and the way that we are advising others within this industry to, get us out there and try to promote an image where we're all inclusive. I am one of the ambassadors for takemefishing.org, and it's a website where you can get all your fishing and boating resources in one place. And they feature so many different people on their blog, and Jeanine is featured this month on the front page if you want to check it out. But they often tell stories where people can come to that page, takemefishing.org, and they can feel inspired with their I am an angler story. They often highlight anglers of color or anglers that, you know, most people just wouldn't even think are out there. So, you know, I think we are at a snail's pace, but I am hopeful that big box retailers that you walk into to get your fly rod or get your any type of waders or wading boots, when we walk in, aren't shocked and surprised that we're there, that understand that we do have money and we do have the buying power and they won't be condescending. I've heard so many times, I wish I could get $1 for every time I heard, well, you know, fly fishing is really expensive. Like, oh my gosh, I don't know if you're going to be able to keep up with this. And it's like, no, I know how much waders cost and I know how much, you know, everything costs, but I'm here because I want to learn the sport. I'm passionate about it. And I think as long as you treat me really nice and you help me learn, I'm going to be here forever.
I'm amazed that you said you hear that a lot, because I that's not something that I ever considered hearing. Now, I have not delved that much into the fly fishing part of things. A barrier that I have found is just in simply getting started. If you don't know other women who fish, sometimes it can be difficult to like walk into a store and start talking to somebody about, you know, maybe what gear you need or whatever. And yeah, I mean, fly fishing is expensive for anybody and everybody, but at the same time, for somebody to single you out and say, oh, yeah, are you sure you want to do that? It's very expensive.
Yeah.
That's pretty bad. I'm a little surprised.
Yeah, you know, that's kind of the bias that I feel, you know, in the DC area when I walked into a big box retailer who shall go unnamed, but where you can comfortably get waders and it's like a one-stop shop. And they're often surprised because I think just, you know, in their mind as a woman, you might have to have your husband buy all of that stuff. As a woman of color, or, you know, do you even, like Jeanine said, do you even have a husband? You know, or you're a single mom? You know, it's all these like really, you know, crazy, like, you know, last century type of biases, you know, where we're in the 21st century, we're in 2023. You know, time has changed. I think the history books need to be rewritten with us women. To Janine's point about how you don't see us on television shows, you know, my joke is always like, let me be the Anthony Bourdain of fly fishing. Let me take you fishing. Let's have like a burger, you know, a burger and some shots of whiskey so that you know that we're all out here.
On that, Jeanine, tell me a little bit about what you do with Fishanistas to encourage women of color, minority women to fish.
We get together and we have a few drinks. We talk junk. We just have this camaraderie with each other that is beyond words. It is a support. And this past year, I have needed my group more than they've needed me. I went through a bout of depression that bout took me out. Having fishing and having my sisters in the fishing industry to say, okay, girl, it's time. You know, you wept long enough. You know, life goes on. Bad things are going to happen. But knowing that I have a group of women to go fish with that don't judge me. We cry together, we laugh together. It's family. It's absolute nonetheless than family. And this encourages other women to feel safe enough to say, okay, you know, I do need this time, you know, I am working hard. You know, I may not have liked fishing in the beginning, but now you guys have shown me a different way. Just to get together with some women and have a good time, let your hair down and fish. And that is one of the ways that I encourage. And it may not be your most typical or the way anyone else would do it. But I have found in my community of women, this is what's needed.
Yeah.
It's just being together. And when women can feel comfortable being together, being able to share, take a load off, it opens the door for so much more.
Well, and I think that comes across in a lot of your social media posts on the Fishanistas Facebook page, which I follow. And I feel like that you've created a community there, even though those of us that don't live in Texas, although I used to live in Texas, those of us who don't currently live in Texas, still feel a part of something. I think that's a great tribute, to what you've been doing. What about you, Angelica? What are you doing? I mean, you mentioned the Women Making Waves. I know you're doing that. If you can explain a little bit more about that and anything else you do with the fly fishing group that helps encourage color.
I just feel such a beautiful sense of belonging with United Women on the Fly, and the community has over 5,000 women globally. And I think we are, weekly getting newcomers that are women of color. A lot of times people slide up in my DMs because they see my social media feed and they think that they want to try it. I also am a Women Making Waves ambassador for TakeMeFishing.org. What that entails is for me to go and be part of their events that are taking place all over the United States. I'll be in Houston at the end of February with TakeMeFishing.org. We'll have some sort of fly fishing workshop, I believe. Everything's still kind of in the planning stages right now. This weekend, I'll be at the Virginia Fly Fishing and Wine Festival in Doswell, Virginia. It's supposed to be the largest fly fishing show in the state of Virginia. And so I will be there to meet and greet different people. Myself on a personal level will be there so I can meet brands. I'm very interested in Tenkara style fishing to see what that's like. And it's also so that I can represent, I guess, myself on a personal level to show other brands that we're out here, and that I'm there to meet different retailers, to kind of see how, as a social media ambassador or social media influencer in the DC space and the Washington, DC space, that we might be able to partner so that I can, offer my services and say, hey, if you need an ambassador or a model, or you want a tester to try out your product, I'm here. I'm right here. Let's do this. And so it's going to be great. I was personally invited by the founder, Bo Beasley, to come and be one of the attendees and make an appearance for the Women in Fishing Happy Hour on Friday. And on Saturday, I'll be roaming around and I'll be meeting and greeting people. And some people will be like, who the heck are you? And other people have had, have slid into the DMs saying like, we can't wait to meet you. So I'm super stoked. That's what I'm doing. That's kind of what I enjoy doing, is just being out and about. And I think the future holds for me is to partner with different brands, including Reddington, including, let's see, there's another brand that I better keep under lock and key right now. I was getting ready to spit it out because sometimes I get excited about partnering, and I think I'm going to be the first woman of color that this particular fishing brand has ever partnered with in the history of their 50-year programming. And I can't wait. So maybe on the next podcast that I'm on, I'll be able to share who it is. But my point is with community and with certain brand collaborations and connections, that is what I'm doing to kind of, I guess, push this forward in the future so that women 5 years from now aren't looking back and being like, why did I see myself represented? Because we are going to represent it. We're going to be out there. And then last but not least, you asked about just community, etc. I just do feel very fortunate to have found United Women on the Fly, as well as I've written for Dun Magazine. And through Dun Magazine, I've been able to connect with a lot of other women anglers who are in the writing space as well. And then TakeMeFishing.org, that has, all three of those things have changed my life. And I'm very grateful for this. And again, I want to just thank you, Chris, because you're the very first podcast that's dedicated to fishing that's invited me on, I think, in the last 2 or 3 years. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I have to say that I have met Angelica before. We didn't get to fish together. We fished in the same group of women, but I haven't gotten a chance to meet you yet, Jeanine, and hopefully I will get.
Hopefully we absolutely will. And it sounds like you live in Georgia.
Yes, I do. Yes.
And that's where I lived. I lived in Douglasville, Georgia for almost 30 years.
Oh my. Okay. Well, I'm over on the coast in Brunswick. Is there anything that we haven't covered that y'all would like to put out there here as we wind up?
No, I think you have done a fantastic job of moderating, and thank you once again, Angelica. You guys, thank you for having me on. I so appreciate it. It is just like Angelica said, she hit every single point. I mean, things that I forgot, she is just so on point. She is so meticulous. She is just, Angelica, you're the bomb, girl.
You are.
I really do appreciate you giving us this platform to be able to let other people see, yes, there are Black women, fair and dark, that are doing the doggone thing, that are getting other women out here to fish. We appreciate all that you're doing for us.
Well, y'all are both doing great work in kind of totally different zones, but both zones done. And so thank y'all for being here and being with me, and hopefully we will meet on the water sometime soon.
Absolutely.
I'll add in, because I didn't have a chance to tell you all, but we at United Women on the Fly will be hosting a few events this year. We've also are joining forces with an app-based company called Trout Routes, and they are going to be sponsoring a scholarship fund for BIPOC women to come out and get a fully sponsored guide service, a fully sponsored lodging and fishing education in the next year. So I want you all to stay tuned to that. If you'd like to follow me on social media, you can follow me at Angelica Talan on Instagram, or angelicainthecity.com, and unitedwomenonthefly.com. We are going to be having more in-person events in 2023. I will be hosting one here in the state of Virginia in May, and we will make that announcement by the end of this month. So stay tuned, because I want to meet all of you in person. I want everyone that wants to learn how to fly fish to come and check it out, because I really want to introduce every single person that I can in this world to my passion and to my love for fly fishing.
Does sound like some awesome opportunities. And please send me information. I'll make sure to put it on our Women in Fishing page to try to get the word out there as much as we possibly can. Anyway, well, thanks, y'all. I appreciate you joining me, and tight lines on the water, and see you soon.